Right, Morena Koutou, and welcome everybody, including members of the public today for a very important day. I'll open us with karakia. God our Father, we gather here today and ask for your blessing on our work, on our thinking, on our dialogue, on our actions. Send us your spirit so that we may discern the better way, mindful of the impact on our decisions, especially on those who are most vulnerable and on the earth, our common home. Help us to treat each other with respect so that all can have their say. May we let in the fresh air of humour and good grace and not take ourselves too seriously. Let us not cling to long held opinion, but be prepared to listen, to change our minds, to be surprised by insight and new perspectives. Let us leave the room for your spirit to inspire, to challenge, to change. We make this in all our prayers through Christ our Lord. Amen. Apologies, everyone's present. Online, we have Councillor Wallace, Councillor Franklin, and also our Independent Chair of Audit and Risk, Philip Jones. So, welcome this morning. If I can just ask you, Councillor Wallace and Councillor Franklin, if you wish to speak, if you can just raise your hand. I don't think we'll be having anything on screen.
Yeah, fine, thank you, Mayor Tracy.
Right, declarations of conflicts of interest in relation to today's meeting. There are none. Right, reports. Now, councillors, I thought we would take these items separately because they're both very big items, the adoption of the consultation document. So we have Raj and Karsten will be presenting on that first, and we'll cover off the consultation document, and then we'll cover off the long-term plan, if that's okay, councillors. Following that, we will have Raj has got some information to present if there are any questions, and then I will ask councillors for each for their opinion on it. Okay, right, Raj, over to you.
Through your worship, thank you. Good morning, councillors, staff, the room. What we're going to do today, councillors, is I'm going to tag team. I'm going to have key members of the team come and sit alongside me and talk about and present the LTP. I think it's a great opportunity for staff to come and talk about the significant milestone that we achieved today, which is adopting the CD and LTP to engage and consult with the community to gather their feedback, then to inform, I guess, a 10-year plan. Normally, I tend to say this at the end, but I think given a unique challenges this time around, I want to say it at the start. And what I want to say is a huge, massive thank you for the incredible effort that has been put into pulling together the consultation document and the long-term plan. And I think the effort that's been pulled through in working through with Mayor Tracy, with Brian and the elected members through the numerous workshops and trying to pull the plan together. And I cannot not say enough of the effort that all the staff that has put that many hours into pulling the document together and trying to deal with the challenges and timeframes that were in front of us. So I'm really humbled by the collective effort of the team and how they actually rolled up the sleeves and really supported each other to bring forward this document. And the other quite pleasing thing for me, I guess, from though it's not audited, the audit had reviewed the document, and for them to come up with the feedback, I felt, it's pretty cool actually. Nothing really significant that they have raised as changes we have to make. So that shows, I guess, the quality of the document that the team has pulled together, even though that it hasn't gone through a thorough audit. So that's I'd like to say that up front, Mayor Tracy and Brian, just thanking the staff and Mayor Tracy yourself and the elected members, tremendous effort together. The other thing I want to mention before I let Carsten jump in is about the relief provision that's provided. So since the public are in the room, I just want to draw the attention to para 3.4, where there was a series of, there were several provisions provided, relief provisions provided to local governments, and para 3.4 summarizes where we have taken advantage of the provisions provided, which is going down the path of an unaudited CD and adopting the final LTP no later than July 2024. So jumping straight into the process, what I want to do is what Mayor Tracy has talked about is Carsten is here. He's going to talk to you about the CD and a little bit about the engagement and consultation with the community, and then we open up for discussions and about the CD. Then come the long-term plan. I'll have Angela to come and talk to you about the long-term plan process and the strategic framework. And then I've got Sarah to sit alongside me and talk to you about the financial strategy and some of the highlights or changes that the auditors have put through. And then questions. So, Mayor Tracy, you okay with? Yeah. All right, so hand over to Carsten to talk about the CD.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Carsten van der Oord, and I'm the Communications Manager. So I'm presenting the consultation document of the draft long-term plan 24-34. So the consultation document contains 7 consultation items. There's also a lot of inform items and a lot of information about things which we might possibly be consulting on this year or in years to come. In addition to that, it also provides a lot of background information into the circumstances under which this council operates. And it also, most importantly, provides information of what the plan is for the next 10 years, how we're going to pay for it, and who's going to pay for it. Now, this is a lot of information to put in a consultation document. And right from the beginning, we recognized that some of the consultation items were really technical and they would be very difficult to understand for many people. So we made a conscious effort to use very easy to understand language and to support the message of these consultation items with infographics, tables, and graphs. Now, we did a bit of research before we did that. So we looked at some of the LGNZ guidelines. We also looked at some of the best practice documents which were around. We looked at other councils, how they did it in the past, and we looked towards Taituara and what sort of guidelines they had around consultation documents and how they went about explaining things which are quite technical of nature. So we took this on board, and using this information, we developed our consultation document. As of today, our consultation period starts the 1st of May, and it's going to be until the 30th of May. We have 15 events booked in already. So we have the Monday event with the mayor and councillors, the coffee event, which we're piggybacking on, and it's going to be, this is all going to be about the LTP. We have 6 town meetings. These are evening meetings, which we're going to have. So it's in our main towns, including Pongaroa and Norsewood. And we're also going to piggyback on some of the market days which are out there in our main towns, and there's going to be members of the ELT and elected members present there. Of course, we're also going to do a digital push behind the consultation. We are in the process of setting up our website. It should all be online today. And we're also going to put out a lot of messaging around this on our social media and also in the print media and also on the radio. To get the document up to this point where we are now has been a huge effort, and in turn, I would also like to thank everyone in this room for your contributions toward this document. We've had some really good feedback coming in through you. which we've incorporated. I'd also like to thank members of the ELT for their direction, which they've been giving us to this document. And honestly, by doing this the last couple of months, we've literally gone into every nook and cranny of this council. We've worked together with every single team. And it's been a mammoth effort, and I'd like to extend my thanks as well to everyone, and particularly the finance team. Okay, so the elected members have been reading through this document. Since it was provided to you last week on Thursday, there's been a few tiny changes, mainly cosmetic, mainly proofreading based, typos, etc. But what we also had coming in last night was a few tweaks by the auditors, and would like to take this opportunity to go through them with you. Some of them, or most of them, are actually about some of the finances. So that's why I'd like to invite Sarah to the front and help me with them.
Good night, everyone. As Carsten mentioned late last night, we received some recommendations of changes we should be making to our consultation document as a result of a final audit review. As Raj previously mentioned, these changes are quite minor, and it's quite reassuring and really nice to get those sorts of things come back to us. A couple of the changes I just want to highlight are around changing of wording. So within the rate smoothing activity, we've used the word budgeting. They've suggested we change the word to funding. So this is probably the biggest, just little tweaks which we will be making and we'll get through this afternoon. They have made some suggestions to us in the infrastructure strategy section where they would like us to include a graph. We have this graph within the infrastructure strategy within volumes 2 of the long-term plan, and it's also in volume 2 within the financial strategy as well. So we'll look to just copy paste that over. They have also made a suggestion that we change the graph, one of the graphs that we have around the debt headroom in the financial strategy section, with one that we already have in our financial strategy, and to include headings on our graphs which are missing. They've also made a suggestion that we give a little bit more of an explanation around the financial headroom, which I'll talk to when we get to the long-term plan. But that's the gist of the changes we've received from our auditors. Late yesterday afternoon, Raj and I also had the pleasure of chatting with Philip Jones, our independent ARC chair, and he made some really good suggestions which we would like to incorporate as well. So if I could just redirect you to page 33 of your agenda. In this beautiful infographic that we have here, you'll see when you get to the rural section, there's average decreases as opposed to increases, and it's just Philip suggested that we give a bit more of an explanation to it. So my understanding is some of this is driven from the land value and the capital value changes that have taken place to these specific properties. So we're looking to insert the 2020 valuation numbers so that it gives a little bit more context to this page. And then if you continue on to page 34, we're going to include a blurb under the bottom of those tables that just explains it a little bit more as well. And one of the other suggestions, and rightfully so, that was picked up was on our rate smoothing. Our options 2 and our options 3, we have said that there is no cost. That is incorrect. There will be additional borrowings, which when I get to my financial strategy changes section, I'll walk you through, but effectively there will be interest costs for both options of deferring or rate smoothing. and it's approximately $98,000 worth of interest costs for option 1, and then $645,000 for option 3, which we'll look to update and include in these tables.
Right, Sarah, so that's 98,000 for option 2. And what was the figure for option 3? 645, thank you.
True. Can I just confirm that the preferred option, which is option 3, that disclosure, that cost is already included in the financials. So it's not a change to the financials, just disclosing that in the CD document. Thank you, Carthen. Tracy, if there's any questions or discussions on the CD document.
Just go to Brian for a comment first. Ken, thanks, Councillor Woods.
Through your worship, just one other minor thing on page 41, under the pay to swimming for what's happening now, just the figure from approximately 1.6 million to be changed to 1.1 million.
Councillor Woods.
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. On page 42, I've already highlighted this to cast, and option 2 says fund the 2 million, and yet the what is the cost box has 2.5. So
Councillor Woods, I think I sent that one through too. In the options. Wording, but correct, yeah.
Yeah.
I think a few macrons and bits, sorry. Right, Councillor Johns.
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. Carsten, you did mention that you've been through and proofread and made some changes, and you may well have made one, but on page 9, 8.4, other matters are, we are to drop out that first R. I did notice 2 or 3 others in here, but I'll come across them shortly.
Thank you, Peter.
Councillor Johns, can you let the team know so we can make those?
Also on page 10, 10.3, third line, the end of it, whereof Parramatta District Council. Drop out the of.
Yeah.
On page 13, 11.6 last, plus 3% plus 2% dedicated for debt acceleration or repayment. Acceleration there.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't find it. Is it
Page 13, 11.6.
on the actual report?
Ali will take care of that.
And also
Yeah.
on 11.5 for this LTP, we believe, rather than just LTP. So we.
Right, so those. Oh, yeah, yeah. Got it.
So those are not included in the CD document, they're just in the report. Gilmore.
Thanks very much, Mayor Tracy. Thanks very much for giving the update on where things are at. I've just got a couple of quick questions, if that's okay. The first one was, I think I mentioned in our last workshop when we first saw this document, requested that we add in some cumulative rating impacts. So actually have to be able to very, very, very clearly show people what the rating impact is going to be over a period of, maybe even if it was over a 5-year period. I think, sort of showing the rises as they're going is fine, but actually really highlighting over this long-term plan what the rating impact will be. And I was just wondering if there was any consideration given and why we perhaps decided not to include that.
Through your worship, if you look at page 21 in one of the options where we talked about the rate smoothing, there we have disclosed, I guess, the rates impact over the 10 years of the plan of the various options. So if you're looking at a rates impact for the ratepayers to look at our preferred option, which is option 3, we have disclosed, I guess, not cumulative, but we disclose the year-by-year rates impact over the 10 years. That's in the LTP document itself. Whether we think that that's sufficient to disclose the impact, or is there a suggestion that at the front of a document, or whether in the financial strategy section of the CD where we want to disclose that cumulative, because I felt that disclosing that table clearly articulates what the rates impact is in each year of the LTP for the preferred option.
So yeah, thanks for that, Raj. What I was hoping for was that would be more up the front of the document. I think when most people have a look through our consultation document, in fairness, what they're looking for is what the rating impact is going to be. Well, that's a primary driver for their engagement and for having a look. So my preference when I raised it was for the cumulative impact to be really clearly displayed at the front. I understand that not in a cumulative way, but the full rating impacts have been identified and or highlighted or disclosed. I think you mentioned. I think I'd probably rather they be highlighted rather than just popped in there within the options. So that's just my personal view.
Through your worship, I would say the challenge, the caveat to that would be we do know that the LTP sets in terms of rates, the rates increase for the 10-year plan, and we do know that at each annual plan we tend to go back and revisit those rates increases and adjust them based on discussions on level of service, looking at what the impacts or what the changes were. And I think if you look at the Mayor's Forward on page 21, and I think what we've included there is quite clearly what the average increase is across the 10 years, rather than looking at it, 6 years, which is 9.48%. I think why we did that was to show the impact of one of the options, which is a rate smoothing, of how we have try to reduce the 10.6% increase in year 1, and how we address the affordability issue by rate smoothing that over the 6 years. So that's why we explicitly stated in the Mayor's Forward that it's a 9.48. But putting the cumulative impact, I'm just concerned that given the manner in which we pull together the LTPs, and it goes across, I guess, 2 LTPs as well. And we do know that in LTP, that's when we make some significant change in directions for council. So I'm just concerned that by doing that, whether in spirit of providing information, we could be misleading to say that is what the rates increase is going to be for the fixed 6 years. So we're just trying to make sure that we provide a table, which I think is quite clear as what the rates increases for that each year, but then trying not to highlight that to say that, this is the cumulative impact of the rates of the ratepayer for the 10 years when we do know that each AP and each LTP, we have an ability to reset council's priorities, even direction, and the rates increase as well.
Thanks, Raj. Just before I go to you, Councillor Gilmore, I was going to check in with the independent chair of audit and risk and just see what other documents that he may have seen or be aware of, or how this is reflected in those. Is that okay with you? Sorry to pop you on the spot, Philip.
I think I'm muted, am I?
No, we can
Oh,
hear you.
good,
loud and
good.
clear.
Thank you for that. To be blunt, right? I haven't seen, well, where I have seen councils smooth things over a greater than 3-year period, there is an increased focus from the auditors about, are you actually being sustainable? So that's the first issue that I don't see here, right? And I think this is why I raised the issue with Raj and Sarah last night about what was the cumulative cost of option 3, where you're actually smoothing for for greater than 3 years, for 6 years. In terms of other documents, I haven't seen the cumulative rates increase as a cumulative. The danger in doing that is that this is an average rate increase, and when you look at the detail in the consultation document, you see that individuals or different groups of properties have a different increase in rates. So while it's all very well to say, yes, this is good information to show the cumulative, I haven't seen it elsewhere. And also the added problem with doing it is it's the average total rates increase. It's not the increase that every ratepayer will actually see over that 6-year period. Does that help me, Tracy?
Yeah, it does. Thank you, Philip. Councillor Gilmore.
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. Thanks, Philip, for that insight. I'll just move on to my last question, if that's okay, Mayor Tracy. So through you to Raj, having a look at this document and perhaps to Carsten, you know, a huge amount of work has absolutely gone into it. I am quite conscious, though, that we, assuming that it's adopted, that we will have to be pushing print on this tomorrow because there's a public meeting tomorrow to go through it. So I just want to really check the confidence levels. I mean, it still seems that there are some proofing that needs to be done. What is our confidence level that we'll be able to have a doc ready for that public meeting, ready for the website to go live today, that will have all of these tweaks that we've talked about put into them?
I'm fairly confident that we can make that happen. Yes, we won't be able to offer people printed copies, properly printed copies, but we will be able to print in-house. We will have to make the changes today. I'm confident that we can do that. That means that we can do the printing in-house tomorrow in time for the meeting. And tomorrow we'll also have to send it on to the printer for proper prints, and those documents will get early next week.
Tracy, is picking up on Philip's comment about the average rate increase. The average overall is a bit of a nonsense, really, as it was last year with e.g. residential. The average residential rate rise was 19.7 or something, I seem to recall, which was about 5 or 6% higher than the advertised rate increase across the district. So for half our population, their rate increase will be, e.g., 15%, thereabouts. And maybe we need to make a statement to that effect, that while the average is 10 point whatever. For residential, it will be more likely 15% roughly. Just a statement.
Brian, you can, we're all going in the same.
I think, yeah, thanks, Your Worship. I think Councillor Johns, that's highlighted on page 16 of the CD where it does, and 33 of the actual report. So that clearly articulates what you've just said, I think.
Yeah, well,
And we can come back to us if you, Councillor Chang.
Thank you through you, Mayor Tracy. See, just on page 32 of our document, and the graph, it says for the Paetua swimming pool that the debt, it shows us in the graph that the debt is more than what we're actually applying for, where the writing says 3.2 is external grants, but that looks like we're going to be taking on more of the debt for the pool when it should be. So are the colours around the wrong way?
That's 32 of the document or the page?
32 of the document of the page, and page 15. So that to me looks like we're going to be taking on more of the debt for the swimming pool.
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, it's only 2 points. So the colours need to change around.
Thank you.
Good. Right, are there any further questions before? I just want to unpick a little bit on the rate smoothing with just adding in that new piece of information. And I know it was something that we did heavily debate in the chamber, just around affordability. You're still comfortable with offering that option, but having some really good, robust conversations in the community to just what that means. Okay, thank you. Just checking. Okay, right, Philip, just before I go around the room, did you wish to make any further comment? And then I'll just go around and see if councillors would like to make any comment on the document.
No, thank you for that, Mayor Tracy. Not on the consultation document. I think you've just highlighted a really important issue, that when we are talking rates smoothing, I think it's really important that there is the community understand what the rate smoothing actually will require them to do over the next 6 years, right? And that is when other councils, right? And I'm not saying this will happen. There is a potential for other councils to actually have significantly lower increases, but because of the rate smoothing, particularly years 4, 5, and 6, Tararua would actually could well be seeing a higher rates increase than its peers around the region and the country. And I think that as long as you've had that discussion and have it every year with the community, I think that's a really, really important point. And I think that's almost one of the key messages of your consultation.
Thank you. Right, councillors, I'll just give the opportunity before we put the motion for the consultation document if there's no further questions. But do councillors wish to make any comments individually on the consultation document? If I go on screen, Councillor Franklin.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd actually just like to congratulate the team on the enormous effort that's gone into this, and it's been a long, hard, arduous process, but it's great to see this document now almost finalised and ready to take out to our people. And I absolutely agree with Philip's suggestion. I think we do need to take them on this journey with us so that they can see and understand, like we do, because we've been taught it, what rate smoothing is all about. So I'm really comfortable with it. Thanks, Mayor Tracy.
Thank you. I'll just go to Councillor Johns, who's got his hands raised, and I'll come to you, Councillor Wallace.
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. Yeah, similarly, I'd like to congratulate you, Carsten, and the team for under substantial pressure to get this out. Initially, I was a bit doubtful about the chatty style as opposed to a more formal document. But the more I read, the more I began to like it. And I think it's, in this day and age, probably quite appropriate. As to the radio, I've heard numerous radio ads lately. And once again, congratulations on those. I think they're very effective. Well, I hope they're effective, but they sound good.
Thanks, Peter. Would you like to do a radio ad?
For radio, Councillor John. Thanks, Councillor Johns. Councillor Wallace. Might be listening. Right, that's fine. Councillor Chase. Councillor Sutherland.
Thanks, Tracy. I'm pretty happy with it really, and just follow the trend of the people's with their views of it. The only thing that had been niggling at me a little bit was the smoothing really again. So the option 3 in the graph or the charts where we said smoothing over 6 years, and I take Philip's comments here, even less financial impact in year 1 of the LTP, which is quite correct, and the cost nil. But there is a cost of 600 odd thousand interest, isn't there, in year 1, I think. That is. So was that right, Sarah? I just got myself a bit muddled up with that.
And through your worship, option 3, there'll be an additional $2 million worth of borrowing that needs to take place to allow option 3 to take place, which is within our financials that are presented. That will be repaid over obviously the first 6 years of the plan, and the interest cost over the first 6 years for that additional $2 million debt is $645,000.
Would we be making any comment in that area about that? Have we been totally transparent, or that may be in the later document? But I guess the more you tell, the more you say, the more confusing it might be. But it's just, I'm not really suggesting we should change it, but we just need to be aware of it, or at somewhere be able to explain that quite clearly, because it's not a free option, is it, by any stretch? It's not an easy option, and Philip had the comment it could be costly at a later stage. Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Sutherland. And if I recall, there was a huge, we had a huge conversation around, what was prudent versus affordability in the community. But I think that's one where, when we are doing these radio ads and consultation meetings, some, frequently asked questions, that's one that people do need to understand, because it's a great opportunity to have that conversation with the community as well. Yeah, Councillor Chase.
Sorry, through you, Mayor Tracy. I don't quite understand the rates review for the options. What's Dannevirke North and Dannevirke South?
Which page?
It's on page 59 of our document. All of Dannevirke plus north. North and south.
To you, Your Worship, page is over 2 pages, page 59 and page 60. The page 59, option 1 is no change, and no change is where we currently is how we rate for the town centre upgrades, dividing the district into the north and south. Whereas in page 60 is where our preferred option, where we workshop and council's preferences to move away references for the north and south and have a single district-wide rate. So that's how we've done it. So in where you're saying, Councillor Chase, in page 59 is disclosing what the current north and south rate is. So what's that doing is that it is looking at the 4 town upgrades that we have, which is the Paetua, Iki, Dannevirke, and disclosing what the north is paying and what the south is paying. And it's quite important for us to do that, because once you have a district-wide rate, one rate across the district, you'd find that there are some in the district in the north and south would pay less and others would pay more. There's like what $6 to $7 difference between the two. That's why we wanted to disclose that quite clearly.
I understand that, but what's Dennybrook North and Dennybrook South?
On page 59, it says Northern, Southern, Dennybrook North, and then Dennybrook South. It is, rating wise, it must be split into two. Eleanor.
Okay, true, true worship. Now I got it. So why we had Dennybrook North and Dennybrook South separate is that it's only for the Dennybrook town we offered a lump sum payment. So those who have paid the lump sum payment will not be paying going forward for Dennybrook at all. So we wanted to make sure that we disclose quite clearly in that option to say, yeah, you have a north and south that's divided, but for Dennybrook we also distinguish north and south. So those who have paid the lump sum, they will not be liable for the Dennybrook. And why we did that is that in the proposed option, which is page 2, we still would have a district-wide rate, and then we still have the Dennybrook rate sitting on its own because of the very reason that those who pay lump sum, they should not be getting the Dennybrook charge. Yeah. So just to explain, if I can make it clearer, when they receive the rates invoice going forward, they would see 2 lines, town center district-wide, which will include the 3 major towns and any other towns that we decide to do going forward. And then they'll see a Dennybrook town center, one rate that everyone will be paying for it. In 3 years' time, in 2028, when the lump sum Dennybrook is repaid, then all the ratepayers will see in their rates invoices a single line, district town refurbishment.
Councillor Johnson, I think if that one there, Carsten, might be good just to have that frequently asked questions on, so that we have all got that. Councillor Johns.
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. Just while you're on page 59, halfway up the page, what's happening now? Council have already should be has, just to be a bit pedantic. Council is singular, not plural.
Thank you, Councillor Johns. I think you'd make an excellent proofreader. Background. So, Councillor Peter Weber, any comment from you?
Oh, I don't have much, but thank you for all your the team's work. There's been a lot going into this. I just wondered, for the swimming pool, we're saying 2.5 million, but in the heading it says 2 million. Are we sort of, is that contradicting?
It's one of the minor changes.
Oh, is it being pointed? Yeah, sorry.
It's been done. Councillor Gilmore.
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. I don't have a huge amount more to add. I want to reiterate Councillor Johns's comments. I also was very keen for this to be I guess, a much more sort of traditional document. Reading through it, though, I think that you've done very, very well to explain some complex things in a really easy and accessible way to understand. So I think you and your team absolutely should be congratulated on that, and happy, particularly going to Mayor Tracy's prayer to, when you have new information, to be able to change your mind about that. So I just wanted to raise that because I had some quite strong views at the time. Just on the rate smoothing part, absolutely agree with what people are saying. I do think that most of that actually can be covered off in the options box though. So I know it was mentioned right at the start about the impact on debt, the impact on level of service, having that information. And what I would request though is in the how does this impact rates box, also that there's some explanation there when it comes to the borrowing. So not just what does it do, what does smoothing do, but actually what is it going to cost people each year to be able to take that option. Mayor Tracy's absolutely right. It was really heavily debated and one that I personally struggled with, leaning more to the side of affordability. But this is the purpose of going out to the community to find out, would they rather that with us taking on more debt and perhaps more cost over time, or would actually they rather have the higher rate increase up front? So I'm looking forward to that conversation with the community.
Thanks, Councillor Wards.
Thanks, me, Tracy. I'm going to add my overall comments prior to the next motion, but just concur and endorse. I think the CD document has come up trumps. Page 51, ageing is spelt wrong. Sorry, Carsten. Otherwise, I'll spend some time later going through the other parts, but yeah, I'm sure it got picked up in there.
Can I say something about this? I've had lots of proofreads back from people, and some people say it's spelled the other way. And then, so we actually looked into it, and apparently this is the right, according.
This is different spelling to every other aging.
Oh, that's, maybe that's the one. Okay.
I completely agree with you, getting your head around it. I don't know that one, but this is different to every other aging you've got in the document. Page 51 under, we prefer option 1. Thank you, me, Tracy.
Councillor Wards. Councillor Johns, your opinion on the spelling of ageing? Because when I look at that, I spell it the other way as well.
Yeah.
There's only one way.
Thanks, Councillor Johns. And Councillor Long.
Through you, Mayor Tracy. Excellent work. Thank you to the team and the councillors too for the effort that's gone in for this length of over a year doing this project. We always knew it was going to be a tight time frame, so that was always on the cards. My thing will be the submissions that come back. I think it's everybody in this room, their job now for the next few weeks is to implore the general population of Tararua to put a submission in, whether it's good or bad, just put something in so that they have a voice. Really important. Thank you.
John.
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. One other little pedantic one, Carsten. Page 65. Service level, last paragraph, service level reviews are all about lifting the hood. It's a very American term. We use the word bonnet.
Thank you, Councillor Johns. And I do love that opening karakia because Councillor Johns gets very grumpy if he doesn't do his crossword on a daily basis. So he is superb at language. Around this table. Thanks, Councillor Johns. Okay, certainly I absolutely acknowledge the incredible effort and I think you referred to it, Carsten, as a mammoth effort, and it really has been to get this direction and to get this document, and the thought that has gone into how this looks and how this feels and how we're communicating. You know, it's never been more imperative to be able to engage with the public, to be able to get those messages across, to look at that languaging, and some of the infographics here are absolutely fantastic. You know, they can be social media posts and advertisements on their own, but it actually increases people's understanding and just what we do and just how complex that is. And they can have a look, you know, in one piece of information and just see all of the assets that we've got. You know, there is no simple decision around the council table, and the finances are very, very complex. I also loved and I do, you know, I really like that when you say we looked in every nook and cranny, and talk about the finance team, because the finance team do rock. They have had to have eyes over absolutely everything, and I know that this has been a long haul for both finance and for communications and getting this together. But I think that once we've got that direction and we get that engagement in it, and Councillor Long's right, it is up to us to go out there and actively seek that engagement, because this is imperative that people understand this. I know that in Pahiatua, you know, we've got the Pahiatua poll. People need to have their say. They need to make sure, and we've got that direction. This is where we're going. I've talked, and I will talk a little bit more in the long-term plan around the disciplines and the focus that we do need. But the first one is around engagement, and this document is a terrific start and what we've got planned. Councillors, we will have some advertisements and some videos and trying all sorts of new things. So well done for that. But I do know that it was ambitious to try and improve every service and everything that we were doing with such a big year of change as well. So the team have done incredible. I think once we're through this consultation and we've got that clear direction, we can just get on and get some things done. But for me to have some of the strategic stuff and getting people to understand that clearly what that is and where those linkages are will be really, really important. So we'll have to think of something that we can do to celebrate this once we're for that. So with on the recommendations, councillors, that we have a recommendation on page 3. So because I've split those on the consultation document, so 1.1, that the report from the group manager, corporate and regulatory date of the 23rd of April 2024 concerning the adoption and of the consultation document and supporting information be received. And then item 1.2, that the council adopts for consultation unaudited 2024-2034 term plan consultation document. Sorry, I'll just check my, as a second motion on that, and then we'll do the long-term plan ones separately. That's correct. Okay. So I'm happy to move that motion. Seconded by Councillor Long. All those in favour, please say aye. Against. Councillor Franklin.
Aye, thank you.
Councillor Wallace. Okay. The motion is carried. Thank you, Raj. Thank you, Councillor. You're allowed to explain.
Sorry, aye, did that come through?
No, sorry. Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Your Worship and councillors. Now we move on to the LTP document, and I'm great to have Angela beside me to walk you through two elements of the report. One is on para 4 of my report, really talking about the LTP process, and then para 7 talks about a significant change that we did in the LTP, which is our strategic framework. So I thought we would talk about Angela would talk to councillors about those two sections.
Thanks very much, Tracy, councillors, staff.
Thank you.
Kia ora koutou, me Tracy, councillors, staff and media. So this is just a brief summary about those 2 points. Because I'm sure you've read the report and we've all been through this process together. So just to summarise the process, back in April 2023, we started the direction setting with the vision and outcomes, which led to that strategic framework. We've covered the assumptions and the activity levels of service. So the next step was engagement and updating all the key documents, such as the suite of the rating policies, the significance engagement policy, and the infrastructure and financial strategies. And all of these have been iterative, as you've experienced. the individual processes requiring the consideration of new information through the environment scans and all the new government changes. So we've had to rethink, relook throughout the process. So yeah, there was the engagement process, but then we're also now about to go to the formal consultation stage. Ahead of us is the analysis and consideration of the community feedback. We'll work with the auditors and a final long-term plan document to produce. Further to point 7 in the report about the strategic framework, we've been able to look closely at the execution of that framework, right from the district strategy through all of the documents in the LTP, through all the activity management plans, and then right through to our performance measures and targets. And this time our strategic framework included Te Tiriti o Waitangi, which has been purposefully considered and included in every activity and the district strategy. So we've been very lucky to have a dedicated resource to do all that deep look and make sure that everything links. So yeah, that's really all I have to say about it. And I know that some people have some little changes and ideas and things about the document. There have definitely been some tweaks and little fixes since the document that you've seen and you've got on the big tin can here. And I will sit with some people and work through those as well.
Thank you, Angela. I guess it's quite important. I just want to touch on a little bit about the strategic framework. And this is the first time in the many years that I've been here, Council adopted a district strategy. And I think the significant work that we did in realigning the LTP to the district strategy was enormous. The work that was done by previously the GM, Adele, Angela, then with Grace following through, I think was really significant because we had to do, for want of a better word, that pivot, because the district strategy was adopted early this year. And the LTP, as what Angela said, started with the workshops last year. So that realignment was significant, making sure they do it. There is still some work for us to do in this space as we mature and do the realignment, but I think we've got a really good head start as to how we're giving effect to the district strategy in our long-term plan. Just wanted to. Thank you, Angela. If we've got no questions, or we could wait for the questions at the end when we finish. Tracy.
Councils are comfortable.
Can I thank you? If Sarah to sit beside me, and we're going to talk about a few things. First, through you, Tracy, just want to talk very briefly about the infrastructure strategy, and then touch a little bit of this. And then I'll let Sarah jump in and talk in depth about the financial strategy and any significant changes she's made. If you look at page 7 of my report, you look at strategic enablers in our LTP framework, these 2 strategies or plan feature, meaning the infrastructure strategy and the financial strategy are our enablers. They together needs to, I guess, tell the same story about the infrastructure and the funding challenges for council. So they need to be coherent. They need to talk about the challenges on each of the strategies. That means the financial strategy needs to talk about the infrastructure challenge. The infrastructure strategy needs to make sure it accounts for the financial challenges as well, the funding challenges, and both needs to be coherent. And if you look at page 11 in para 10.6, where it talks about the big picture issues in the infrastructure strategy, and the first off the bat is affordability. And that is one of the issues that financial strategy talks about. And that underpins, and I think, both of the strategies and how it's looking to invest in our infrastructure. And the financial strategy is then saying, how can we afford that investment? And how do we then still continue to invest, at the same time deliver on outcomes, yet achieve that sustainable affordability? So I just wanted to highlight the linkage and importance that the both of this document needs to actually be on the same page. I'll hand over to Sarah to talk about the financial strategy, and then after that, I'd like to talk about the rates impact. And I think I just want to spend a little bit more time to talk about the rates impact and how this is different from the current annual plan, and how this is also different from the year one of the previous LTP as well. Yeah. Sarah.
Thank you, Raj, for that wonderful introduction. We have been on quite the journey with our financial strategy. We have workshopped this extensively, and I personally want to thank you all and thank Philip Jones as well for all of your contribution that has gone into this document and getting it to where it is today. That being said, at our last workshop, I want to say it was 2 weeks ago, maybe, off the top of my head, some really good feedback and suggestions were made. One specifically around affordability and putting in a definition around what affordability is to us as a council. So I'm going to draw your attention, and I'm sorry, I'm going to be a little bit here and there. Within the financial strategy on page 290 of your agenda, within the introduction section, we've included a bit around affordability. When we discussed this in the workshop, affordability is open to interpretation. It's what is affordable to me is not affordable to everyone else or to members of our community. So just making sure that we were really highlighting what that meant for us as a council and what we have done to try and address affordability issues as we move forward. Sorry. So within the financial strategy, we have set out what our guiding principles are for this 10-year plan. Affordability was the very key one that we've had at the forefront for this entire plan.
Sarah, which page?
Page 290 of the long-term plan.
Attachment 2, sorry. That was my introduction section.
So it just takes us a bit to get to it on that.
My apologies.
We'll try.
Say there's, I want to say it's a good 2-3 paragraphs. Paragraphs actually, we were talking about it and how it flows through. This information has also been put through our infrastructure strategy to make sure, as Raj mentioned, we're intertwined documents and making sure we're talking the same, telling the same story and making sure we've got our documents in alignment. Stick with the attachment, that might be easier rather than me flip-flop because I can talk through that. So as mentioned, we set what guides us as a council for this long-term plan, with affordability being at the forefront, financial stability being a really key item that guides us on our journey, investment in infrastructure, and then our revenue sources. Within this document, we've taken the opportunity to really define what our future is going to look like at the end of this 10 years. So within that, we've given quite clear goals and what we're looking to achieve throughout this long-term plan, which if you just keep flipping, do you want me to reference pages or you? So that's within page 292 and 293. And then we've come to this wonderful section called, this is how we're going to get there. So this is where we have taken, trying to explain how we're going to, what strategies we're putting in place for this long-term plan to ensure that we meet our guiding principles and to meet our community's needs. We took on board feedback around one of the items that we had previously in there, and we have incorporated that into our balanced budget section. So you'll recall within the workshop, we talked around having an item, a strategy called depreciation funding. But when talking through it with the elected members and with our independent chair, we actually came to the conclusion we addressed that within our balanced budget. So we've just synchronized that and put that in place there. Then the only other section that has changed, and I think I alluded to it when we were talking around the consultation document, is around our borrowing limits. So once within the financial model, once we had processed some changes from our auditors and processed the rate smoothing within the financial model that we have, you'll recall when we did the presentation, year 5 was our problem child year, is how I've probably talked to everyone about it. We were very tight within our financial headroom in year 5. These changes now mean that we are in breach of our own limits, borrowing limits for year 5. But you'll recall within that we've spoken about how in years 2 and 3 we had planned to address these issues before year 5 came to realisation. So within that, the plan hasn't changed. We will still look to become accredited rated council, and we will still be doing it within a timely fashion so that come the next long-term plan, we will be better equipped to enable what the next 10 years looks like in 3 years' time. So that was all I wanted to highlight within the financial strategy. I know this is a passion topic for many, like it is for myself. And I know you've said questions at the end, but did you have any comments, questions before I?
Councillors, are there any questions for Sarah in this section? Councillor Wards.
Yeah, Tracy, it'll come to no surprise as my colleagues around the table, nor you, Sarah. In the context of what we've talked about in our CD and in the context here, I have some very concerning reservations around the headroom and where that's going to land. It's a dark tunnel that I'm looking at there, but I'll elaborate a little bit more when I get the chance to speak. Thank you, Mayor Tracy.
Thanks, Councillor Wards. Councillor Sutherland.
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. Just to Sarah, yeah, I just looked at that. That was a note I had too, which was, I think, because affordability is one of my little hobby horses. It was, you did comment on it, I think. Oh, right. Yeah. It's the page 290, the explanation that you put in there, Sarah, the affordability, I think it was a paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. I thought affordability, that paragraph didn't make any sense to me whatsoever, really. And no criticism, just, I'm sure you were trying to get to something, but I thought that it doesn't, grammatically it's a bit off, but I didn't think we explain of affordable as something is inexpensive. I think that's all wrong, but I do think we should just perhaps relook at that quickly before we proceed. It's that I think that's an area that the ratepayers might need to home and just to probably not right now to look at, but maybe just to have a bit of a look at that. That was part 1. That's all right for the time being, yes. Thanks, Tracy.
Through your worship, yeah, I've made a note on that one. I just think there were probably a couple of incorrect words that we need to just have another look at that, but you're quite correct.
Just be a little more simple, try and get to the kernel of what was concerning us. And
even if the first sentence comes down.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, through your worship. I'll bring you back to the report. I just want to talk in my report on page 13 of my report above parallel 1.5. The bubbles. Just to me, that's really telling in a few things. Telling in a sense that where we were 10 years ago in terms of our rates increases and where we are now in this LTP, And I think looking at the LTP rates increases where we will be going forward. So I guess for me, it's quite telling that the rates increases that we had in the past 8-9 years ago, or 3 and 4, that's just behind us going forwards. And I think is and where we alluded to the average rates increase, it's going to be hovering around the 8 to 10. And I think that's the reality that's in front of us. And I think we talked about this, Mayor Tracy, that's the conversation I guess we need to be having with our ratepayers, that historic low rates increase, it's will be a challenge or not even a reality for us going forward with what's in front of us. But I think it also, I guess, gives us where the focus is in the LTP. We talked at length about what we're going to do and how we're going to look at our service levels in service level reviews, what we're doing in regards to rationalization. I think all of that is an attempt to make sure that we address, I guess, the affordability and ongoing rates increase for Terra Road. So I thought I'd just highlight that graph. That's really telling. The section that I want to talk to you about, councillors, is in page 15, para 12, rates impact. We are going to be providing a lot more information in the frequently asked questions. And also one of the things that Carsten has done in his CD is that where he listed the table that discloses the individual rates that's impacting the sample risk properties. And I think that's in our attempt to, I guess, to be very transparent in our rates impact, which is what Councillor John talks about, in a sense that, yeah, we're saying that our rates increase is 10.3, that's average. The impact on the rate payers is different. Impact on each sector is different, and impact on an individual rate payers depending on the land value and how the connected service will be different. So that table that I've put in there on the top of page 16, I think is quite telling. It does say, in a sense, of the sector rates. So it takes, I guess, another level. Average rates increase is 10.3. The sector rates increase is very different. And then when you deep dive into the details, then you have a further variance in terms of the rates impact. So I just want to talk a little bit about, so what's driving that? What's driving it in the first instance, the sector rates? Three things are driving that in this LTP. And one is consistent with the last LTP, the valuation. Every LTP we do a rating valuation. And this year we did one, and that's driving some of the shift in the rating incidence. The second thing that's driving that is unique in this LTP is that we've done some changes to the underlying rates. We have introduced eroding differentials. We are looking to remove the remissions for non-contiguous. These are the key ones. And then we did the rate smoothing. And for the rate smoothing, we actually unfunded the depreciation for roading. So what that meant was the rates impact now is slightly skewed in terms of how the rates land. The other thing is that for the last 2 years, we have seen a significant increase, especially in the two water space, in terms of rates, water and wastewater. And this year, we're seeing another increase in those two activities, given the significant investments we're doing in compliance costs that we have, especially in the wastewater space. So that's really telling for us, and that's really pushing the rates increase higher. And wastewater, I think, saw a much higher jump in rates requirement than water itself. And the sector or the properties that are impacted by this is predominantly urban, residential, or properties that are connected to those services. So that's why you see a skew, I guess, in the sector rates there. And it's a very difficult challenge for council as to how you balance that. And on one hand, we want to make sure that the cost is where it lies. On the second hand, you also want to make sure that you try and balance, I guess, the sector impact. And we use some tools, and we use a crude tool in the rating tools, which is the Uniform Annual General Charge. And I'm sure you'll get some submissions from from groups and members about how we should be setting the uniform annual general charge. And this year we've set it lower than the current annual plan. And one of the primary reason is to actually reduce the impact on the sector that has got a higher rates increase, higher than the average, and that's the residential. By reducing the fixed charge, that means more goes to the land value, you're reducing the impact on the residential. But we also are giving relief to the properties that are impacted by general rates, but rate smoothing, underfunding, the roading. So I believe it's a fair in how you've done that. And the other thing that has shifted the rates impact, it is a differential rate. We introduced in roading a differential rate to actually try and see how we could allocate a roading cost towards towards properties that operate business that impact the roading network, which is what we call a heavy vehicle rate. So what that has done too is actually shifted the rates impact as well. So this is quite an interesting LTP in a sense that there's been multiple levers that we have pulled that has caused this shift. And that's why in the table, the graph in para 12.3 talks about the shift where you have the outliers, where you have decreases in rates, and then you have the increases in rates beyond the 20%. And you could see the increases in rates beyond 20% is predominantly the residential, whereas the decreases are actually in the rural areas. So that's the rationale for that. And where I think individual rate players could see that much better would be in their mock rates invoice. A lot of work goes into us producing the mock rates invoice. Ellie does a tremendous amount of work, and I dare say that maybe we might be the only council in that still do that, because we feel that it's talk about transparency, that truly is transparent with the ratepayers and telling them exactly how this LTP in year one is impacting their rates. So even though a lot of effort goes into it, I think there's great value in us doing that. So I thought I'd just pause there, and if there's any questions on that, Mayor Tracy.
Thanks. So Johns.
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. It's probably a little off skew, but one thing that occurred to me a couple of days ago was with regard to the roading differential. We need to add in, I believe, quarrying. There's a distinct possibility one or more major quarries could develop in the district. And I know in one case, some of the farmers in that area are concerned about the destruction of the roads if that does open up. So I think it would be pertinent to include quarrying in our heavy, the heavy, along with forestry and tankers and the like.
Into mining, it fits already into mining, so it's there. It's covered by mining. Yeah.
The mining category.
Councillor Sutherland.
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. Just a question to Raj and Sarah, and it's probably not really relevant just at the moment, but I've had some conversation with a couple of significant farmers in the southeast who are quite very concerned about the big increases in their land values following Cyclone Gabriel. So the thought crossed my mind, they were talking about working in groups and taking a group or taking individually, but as a team, applications to have their rates reviewed, the valuations reviewed based on damage and production losses on their farm. So I thought to myself, if say 50 or 60 farms had a significant reduction in capital land values, that would probably would come through maybe say July, August at the earliest probably. Would that have an impact? I know Marcus tried to explain this a little bit more detail the other day, but would that have an impact on, if that was retrospectively applied, but it would be probably, wouldn't it? that have an impact on the loading? Will that be a big worry we'd have in 4 or 5 months' time? Just a thought. It may, perhaps we just leave it and see what happens, but I just wondered.
Yeah. Yeah, no quick answer right now, but it's just a comment I had, and we can't do much about that right now.
There is a process called an objection process, and through that process, every ratepayer, every property owner has an ability to challenge the valuation. And I think once we work through that process, we're hoping to conclude that. Ideally, you would like to conclude that prior to striking the rates, because that's your basis in which you strike the rates. And that's what we will attempt to do, so that objections are factored in when we strike the rate. So I'll follow up with Ellie to make sure that, to understand the process of objections and how we're doing that. And it happens, and there may be instances where the objections may take a little bit longer and they may be finalized after the rate strike. Then what we would then do is adjust for them. That's what. For that property.
Thanks, Raj. Can I just ask, following that, will they let us know, or can we ask them to let us know just how many objections that they do have, and that we might just have an inkling of what we may be dealing with here?
Through your worship, they do provide a report as a number of objections they've received.
Yes, Councillor Sutherland.
Well, they close this week.
I was going to say, they're running out of time.
Tomorrow, maybe Friday.
One's in.
Thanks.
And to you, Ms. Tracy, and I think the last two things, and I've attached to my report, which is service performance measures and the fees and charges. A good amount of work has been done by Grace in trying to align service performance measures with the explain for each of the activities a rationale behind service performance measures. That's an area where the auditors would focus on, and I think they've given some initial feedback to us. So we will, through the consultation process with the community, any feedback that we receive, we will then look to update service performance measures prior to, the final. Be ready for the audit, and also if there are significant changes, we will bring it back to elected members here, Mayor Tracy, for final sign-off and agreement on that. The fees and charges, I think I've done the same thing as well. I've attached the fees and charges document, and I think thank you for councillors. Some of them has given some feedback about the fees and charges, so we've made those changes. And I've also disclosed in my appendix the rationale or reasons for the fees and charges. Fees and charges are quite critical because that helps, I guess, and one of the strategies that Sarah has got in financial strategy was looking at revenue sources. The temp of fees and charges is setting it right so that the rates burden is reduced. That's me, Mayor Tracy.
Councillor Gilmore.
Thanks very much, Mayor Tracy. Just while we were on fees and charges, not sure, and I guess we can always have a chat separately. I'm pretty sure I sent through just some feedback on the Woodville campgrounds. I don't think I got a reply, so I just want to double check that that's been included in. Perfect, thank you.
I did check in with the chief executive just around the cemeteries and some of those new ones as well. So, yeah. Awesome, thank you. Right. Philip, did you want to comment at this point just on the meeting that we had with auditors?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Tracy. Just for councillors' information, there was a meeting online last week with the auditors, and the auditors actually wasn't. So actually starting at the top, right, we actually had the Assistant Auditor General Local Government, Mark Maloney. who oversees all audits, and we had Stephen Walker, who's the Executive Director of Audit New Zealand. So he is in charge of resourcing allocation, and then we had our Audit Director, Debbie, on the call. And the purpose of the call was to talk about the tight time frame that audit are having in meeting everybody's LTP review process because of various issues. They basically said is, yes, we are comfortable, we have the resources allocated. That was my question. Do you actually have the resources allocated to make sure that we meet the 31st of July meeting? But the cautionary note was, if we actually go past that date, there is a risk that they won't have the resources. Now, I'm personally aware of a very, I would say, an ex-audit director who then became a chief executive, who is now retired from the sector, who fills in for the sector from local government sector, has actually gone back to Audit New Zealand to fill in some of those resources. So Audit New Zealand, I think the warning was, well, it wasn't a warning, it was a heads up to say we need to have everything as per our timetable to meet their ability to audit by 31st of July. But I think that's the that was the, I would say, not the warning, that's the purpose of the call. But I think the feedback and the discussion was that there was actually a whole lot of positivity and ability to do it, and there was actually good information being currently provided. So I think while it was a warning in a, at the worst sense, it was actually, in my opinion, a very, very good meeting. Have you got anything to add, either Mayor Tracy or Brian, to that? That's my summation of the meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Philip, and through you, Your Worship. Yeah, just to add to that as well, they did talk a little bit about the confidence level in terms of this current LTP, and one of the things we highlighted is that, from my perspective anyway, this LTP has the highest level of uncertainty that we've probably ever had in terms of producing an LTP. But on the other side of it, our confidence level in terms of what we're doing currently with the information that we have, I believe, is reasonably high. So we're trying to balance two things here: high uncertainty, but confidence. And I think the auditor, the Auditor General certainly appreciated that and could see where we were coming from, and commented that this is a message that they are receiving loud and clear. So I think, even though we know things will change, and we were very straight up about that fact, that we know things will change in terms of this LTP while we go forward, but we've produced something that we can be confident of today, knowing what's to come. And the other aspect of it is, talking about when auditors are here, I think we really need to be concentrating, and we shared this as well, on the big items, the big tickets, and hopefully less on sweating on the small items. So it'll be interesting if that message does get through, but I'm sure it already has through Sarah and Raj to Debbie. So that's all I've got to add on that.
Thanks, Brian. It's the first time that we have had a meeting like that, and actually I think it was a really productive one. Everybody's very clear on what the dates and the targets are and what needs to be met, but I think there was real value in all of them hearing, some of the challenges that we've had, and especially when we went through having our annual report adopted, and just how many times that was there, and some of those frustrations. So quite pleased to have Philip on board and being able to work that and being able to sort of have some of those conversations. So we were all crystal clear on just what the dates and the timelines were, and if anything, and also just to even help them out if anything was available earlier, they were happy to have that. And yeah, so it was a good productive meeting actually. Anyone have any questions on that? Right. Okay, so I'll get Philip to speak last because he has also reviewed the long-term plan document. But I'll just go through if anyone's got any questions or if everybody would like to speak to that, I'll go around the room. So first, would you just want me to call this call? Okay. I'll start with Councillor Peter Weber.
Thank you, Mayor Tracy. It took a while to get through this, but I mean, we've been going over this for quite a long time. So, but I don't really have a lot of feedback on it. Yeah, I'll just let others go. Okay.
Councillor Gilmore.
Thanks very much, Mayor Tracy. I've prepared some comments because I want to make sure I keep them as concise as I can. So this has been a really tough LTP, and our council isn't alone in uncertainty in a number of areas, like it's just been mentioned. The compliance changes that have come through from central government make our council's challenges incomparable with councils of 10 years ago. With that being said, I feel we could have done more to save headroom and focus on affordability. I respect many councillors didn't want to see detailed budgetary information, but I believe we've missed an opportunity as a council to dig into the numbers and set expectations. I've tried my best in this area, and getting information has been harder than it should have been. I'm grateful for an 11th hour conversation with staff yesterday to run through questions and gain more confidence in the numbers as they stand, but I'm not convinced that there's nothing left to trim. In the last annual plan process, we couldn't change a whole lot. Some changes were required to be done in an LTP, and I made a commitment then that I'd look at everything possible to focus on affordability and delivering services differently and smarter. We've done some of that, but sadly, I don't believe we've been bold or creative enough or dug in to make the tough decisions. Where we agree on changes like building and land rationalisation, rethinking how we deliver our libraries and service centres, and looking more at shared services, we haven't been fast enough to show a clear path of savings. I support our increase in infrastructure spend, particularly in the waters and roading spaces. But if we're going to increase in those areas, we've got to look at where we can save in other places. We won't be able to cover everything required, but we need to take the pressure off our ratepayers where we can. Although I will vote to approve the LTP for consultation, it's not a document that I personally have pride in. I think we could and should have done more to find savings and optimisations, and I'll be encouraging people to share their views with us throughout the consultation period on what they'd like changed, and I'll be very constructively working to improve it as much as I can before it goes up for final adoption. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Gilmore. Councillor Wards.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mayor Tracy. I usually talk from the cuff, but this is this is a very important decision we make today. This is a big call for this council to be making. So I have crafted some notes that, with your discretion, Mayor Tracy, I shall read. So today I wish to couch my views in 3 dimensions: the have-tos, the want-tos, and the hope-tos. As councillors, we are inducted and trained to understand our role is full of have-to, and the LTP process is one of those. The Office of the Auditor General hangs over us during our deliberations, and the role we are placed in by our ratepayers means we have to be a prudent and wise guardian of the funding that they provide us. This year we have had to push this process to meet a target date because we've been advised we have to. So be it. Today is that day. In my view, what we want to do is not completely reflected in the outcome we are voting on today. I have reservations about the process we've followed, the impact it has on our financial sustainability, especially headroom, the lack of certainty we've been faced with, some of which is not of our doing, and the lack of timely information we around this council table have received. What we wanted to do at the start was ensure we could make some courageous decisions for our community. We wanted a future-focused LTP that identified our weaknesses but put plans in place to address infrastructure, Three Waters, and set up our communities with fantastic sustainable opportunities for young and old. Our debates recently and into the upcoming year will continue to focus on the wants versus the needs of our district. Given I'm a glass half full girl, let me talk about the hope twos after today. I hope that the month of consultation with our community refines our focus lens on exactly what our community sees and views of our planned approach. I hope the community makes it very clear what our priorities for the next 2 years should be. I hope the next annual plan process demonstrates our resolve to not just tweak the dial, but actually jerk it around further and ensure we don't just kick the can down the road. I hope our 17A reviews allow this to happen. I hope this LTP document doesn't end up being a potential doorstop that it is. I have faith in the analysis and plans highlighted within it for the next 18 months. After that, I think we're signing off on fictional figures and goals. I hope the staff feel proud of the work and the effort they have put into this process. In recent months, time pressures, resourcing and capacity challenges have not been on their side. Their committed endeavours have not gone unnoticed. Thank you. Finally, I hope that all of us around this table continue to debate openly, loudly and honestly with each other. Signing off this draft LTP and then refining it after engagement with our community is something we have to do. It reflects some of the wants that we can deliver as a council and will set us up with some hope for the district's future. Madam Chair, although I do so with reservations, I will vote to support the recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor Woods. Can I just, I'm just keen to understand, you said it was full of full of wants. Can you just, I know the Pahia Toa polls there. What would be your top three that you?
I was reflecting on the needs versus the have tos.
Yeah.
And also my couching around the hope for the future is that we wanted to do so much more, that Councillor Gilmore, that the debate around the needs and the wants will come through in the consultation process, I'm sure.
Correct, and that's part of the process and that rationalisation. So, and I think when we go out and have those conversations, the community are going to want them, and that direction is going to come back very clearly, as opposed to, I guess, going out and doing that slash and burn. Some of it we do have to have those conversations with them, but I do understand what you're saying about process. Thank you. Councillor Sutherland.
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. I sort of just reiterate what everyone else has said so far. It's certainly been a really challenging process for our team. That's the management team and staff and ourselves, and we've certainly had our differences at times. I mean, 2 or 3 meetings ago, we changed direction twice, and I was very strongly, as were a couple of other councillors, voting in favour of delaying this long-term plan, and I was really strongly of that view, I'll be honest. And it was around 2 or 3 things. It was basically around Three Waters and roading, and big uncertainties in the way that we were going to fund that if it was back in our camp, and in a way it is back in our camp. And also, as other councils are concerned about headroom and debt servicing down the track. I would have been very keen to have done some of these things we're talking about over the next 12 months and adapt and had an enhanced annual plan. However, things changed. We didn't do that, and 2 or 3 weeks or 4 weeks went past, and I saw that the opportunity was lost, and it was just so much more difficult not to get on with it and try and achieve this 31st of July deadline. If we go past that, it's even more chaotic. We're going to have to set, it'll be a shambles with rates. So I really, really hope we all do everything in the world to make that work. But I do appreciate debt is a concern of mine, and affordability are concerns of mine, really. I know that I see, like Councillor Sharon mentioned, I see almost the moment we adopt the annual plan, what that will be, we'll be looking at changes of 6 months, 12 months out for sure, because we'll see changes with the government's legislation. We'll see roading changes, and a couple of us were at a seminar recently with members of Parliament, and that was quite clear that there were some significant changes going to occur that will impact what we do next year or the years after. Having said that, I think really right around New Zealand, there's so much stress and uncertainty amongst local government that this consultation period will be challenging New Zealand wide. And I think Councillor Scott mentioned things that some of those things that may really come to pass across the nation, not just Tararua, because affordability, I mean, is on every morning. There's issues about affordability, be in local government, in roading and living day to day. So that is just where this goes. It's hard to say, but for all that, we've got a job to do, and it's tough, and affordability worries me greatly. But decades of rate increases, some 2s to 5s to 4s, have come to, the chickens have come home to roost, really. But I am concerned that last year ratepayers in the residential areas were stuck with 15 and 16% increases. Well, in reality, they'll have that again this year and perhaps next year. So in some of those, the biggest impact will be for those ratepayers. And I'm sure we'll hear about that over the next month. But for all that, I think there's been a great job done, and it's transparent, and some of the things that might not be in the consultation documents will appear, I'm sure, in our next month. So I'm very happy to be part of approving it, and let's get to work over the next 4 or 5 weeks, really. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Sutherland. Councillor Chase.
Thank you through you, Mayor Tracy. This has been my very first LTP and my first term being on council altogether. So going through this journey has been very open-eyed, like a lot of brain, a lot of thinking, taking everyone's considerations into my decision making, working with both, the whole community as well, and with the staff here in council, and it's been challenging, thought-provoking, everything actually. And this has been a very hard process, I will have to admit. But I am proud of the things that we are trying to achieve for our community. I am frustrated as hell with some of the constant changes that we are getting through legislative changes, and even through some of the government changes that they are putting upon us. We started off with thinking that we weren't going to have the 3 waters, and we kind of prepared like we weren't going to have the 3 waters, and then all of a sudden we're having to change and include it into our long-term plan, which I would have to say we've done well to try and make that pivot as best that we can, knowing full well everyone's going to be in debt in New Zealand. I honestly do think that something needs to change in central government, where the funding needs to change to help support the local councils. But we're not going to get that information like possibly in 6 months. We don't know what other changes are going to happen, and our LTP is going to change constantly within the 10 years. But we've got to make the best decision that we can with the information that we have today. And as much as I agree with my fellow councillors, it's not necessarily going to be the best stuff that we could provide for our community, but it's one that we're going to have to make just for now. But I look forward to hearing what our community has to say, and the consultation period that we are going to go out with in the next month and continue to do in the next few years to get them, to empower them to have their voice, to have their say, to help make some of the changes that is needed in this country. So with that, I will support the LTP, and I look forward to hearing what our community has to say so that we can come back into this room and make those changes for them.
Thank you, Councillor Chase. Councillor Johns.
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. Without repeating what other speakers have said, most of which I totally agree with, I'd just add that I guess in my view, we knew going into this LTP that there would be changes, but we didn't know what they were going to be. The three waters has been talked about, and that's the big one, of course. So we've produced an LTP on a BAU basis, knowing that it won't be BAU, but not knowing how different or where it will change. And I think we've done a particularly good job, and I'm very thankful to staff for what they have produced under immense pressure. And congratulations for that. I guess my view is that we're flexible enough to adjust to what lies ahead of us, and we don't know what lies ahead of us. We know there'll be legislation changes, but let's just get on with it. There will be changes in priority as time goes on. They can be dealt with, yeah, I think we just get on with the job, and I'll certainly be supporting the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Johns. Councillor Long. Yep. Councillor Franklin.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's not much fun being last because really it's pretty much all been said. The one thing I would like to pick up on was something that Councillor Scott referred to, and I think that's something we need to focus on right at the beginning of this next term, this next year, I should say, financial year, and that is the rationalisation of everything in our community buildings, and that we can bring something to the people that is actually going to be much more cost effective, smarter use of their money. So we've got to start that planning process pretty much straight away, in my opinion. And we can't undo what's happened in the past. We can't change what's happened with the government. I completely concur with everything that Councillor Carey said. In fact, his thoughts were mirrored what mine were, as were Councillor Nyoma's. So we've really got to, I mean, I will support this long-term plan. It isn't what we would have wanted particularly, but the staff, I mean, I've got to give it to them. They've certainly worked very hard to get us here with a lot of obstacles in the way, and it is right across New Zealand. We're not alone in this. The government funding model is desperately broken, and that's something we've got to really push through local government New Zealand to get some changes made to support our communities. We are left out in the dark a lot in terms of our geographical nature and the cost and a small rating base. So we can't carry on like this. And so for me, we've got to pick up the pieces and move on, and we've got to make the best of this consultation process that we can to keep our communities reassured that it's not what we would have wanted, but our hands at this particular stage are quite tied by legislation and by changes with government. So thank you all for all of your work. It's been challenging. We've challenged one another, which I think is a really good thing. We've had some pretty robust debate. So yeah, I think we've just got to sign this off and move on into the next stage and start making things better. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Franklin. Councillor Long, I see Councillor Wants has dropped off.
Through you, Mayor Tracy. I'd like to acknowledge the comments from the councillors. Really respect the honesty in their comments, all of them. One of the things I feel for is the council revenue staff. This is a consultation document, so it's going out to the people, and there will be changes. So their workload is double what ours is. So acknowledge their hard work for the last year in preparing this document. But most of all, I feel for the ratepayers and the citizens of Tararua. And so the word affordability, we still haven't got that definition yet and never will. But for some people, they can afford this, and there's some people that can't. And they are the people that I feel for. Most of what is in this document is forced on us by central government. And so there's a comment there about we have to go back to the drawing board and see if we can get funding. And I think it was through the mayor that the system is broken. The funding system for local government New Zealand is broken, and it has to be looked at in the next year. Otherwise, things aren't going to improve. I will support this document going out to the people. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Long. And I think you would have heard this conversation or this comment before. As a nation, we need to have a talk about what is affordable and some of the gold star standards and aspirations that we've got that simply aren't affordable for us right now. And especially when I look at our roading and what's needed over the country, as well as our aspirations in the water space. But for me, it's great to have our strategic framework embedded in and weaved through this document, our projects, our services and our activities and our work programs. So I'm really pleased about that. And I look forward to the community being able to see that and hearing and feeling it and seeing that direction and our commitment to making this district thrive with connected communities and improving the environment and having that interactive council. So there's some really big changes and there's some good stuff that is being weaved into this. But actually, I also acknowledge, and there is a plan and a process to go through to have those conversations. So those 17A reviews, absolutely critical. Absolutely critical. But for me, this gives this long-term plan, and having this in place gives the staff very, very clear direction. It keeps us focused on what those next stages are with those 17As so that we can make those tough decisions. And especially around the rationalisation, I think that they're conversations that need to be had in the community, but there is a way of going about having those. We will have to be disciplined as a council, as governors, as staff, but actually also as the community. And we've got to keep on talking about that discipline that's going to be needed, you know, because all too often we, you know, there's new and great ideas and we all want them and the community want them as well. But actually, this is very clear. This is where our focus is, this is our direction, and this is our discipline. So does the debt headroom concern me? Absolutely. And we've got some clear discussions that are gonna come for that. But actually part of that conversation is also with the community on, you know, we have 2% that we've dedicated to this. This will be there. I agree with you, Raj. We are not going to see low rates increases as a country going forward. And it really does worry me that every time we've seen costs go up, I've never seen them come back down. And where we're at the moment is unaffordable for most. And we're watching that and feeling that within our own communities. So really an incredible effort from the staff, but actually also from councillors. There has been a phenomenal amount of reading, and I can't ever remember myself having to be so timed and so structured on my reading. Can I just say I also need to go in for another eye test? And I'm sure that happened after COVID, and it's happened again now. And the pace that we're moving at and the pace of change and meeting our community. But you know, when you were all elected and took your oath at the hub, you were all given a coin from the 1st Battalion. And, you know, this morning I reflected on that coin, and it talks about integrity, it talks about trust, it talks about respect, and it talks about comradeship. And there's been some tough conversations around this table. There's been some really honest ones, and I'm really proud that councillors can do that. They're batting for their community with passion every single time in what they believe in and working through that. So I am very, very grateful, and I think that the community should be very grateful for the effort and the councillors that they have sitting at this table. So I just wanted to also acknowledge that incredible effort on behalf of the team to pull this off. Philip, I know that you've also read this document, and I'm sure you're a lot faster than us at doing that. Did you want to share any reflections that you've had as you've looked at it? And I guess you've been with us for, one ARC meeting and then subsequently a few others, but it's been good to have your input. Did you want to share your thoughts just before I put this to the vote?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, and I won't make any personal views. I mean, these are my professional observations, and they're observations only. I think, thank you, Mayor Tracy, for that. I think the issue for me is I'm probably not as fast as reader as some people, but I know where to look, what's important for me. And I just want to draw the council to, there's about 4, 5 just key points that I just want to highlight. And I think just want to reinforce what's already been said. I think this is a great document. It's long, it's lots of stuff which reflects the amount of work, and I just appreciate the openness of both elected members and certainly staff, particularly Raj and Sarah for the amount of information they have provided me. I think there is some good news here, despite what where potentially it could be a doom and gloom LTP. But I just want to highlight to councils, and I'm sorry, you're going to have to jump to page 201 of the actual attachment, which talks about the requirement to report on the prudent financial regulations. Now, I don't personally like all of them, but I think the good news story here is for council and the community is that we've actually got green lines through the majority of those areas. If there was any orange lines or black, that to me would be a signal of concern, and I think that's a good news. Now, we've heard a lot about increased costs, and I think this is a potential. On page 207, we see our depreciation expense take a significant increase because of the revaluations. Now, you say depreciation is only a book entry, but it does actually have a real cost in terms of this is what it actually will cost to replace those assets. So if you look at, and I'm not expecting you to jump there immediately, you can do this at your own time, 207, we're talking about the depreciation expense and how that increases over the 10 years. That will reflect in our renewal costs. And associated with that is we've talked about our debt. I think this is where I'm actually want to pay staff some real compliments. The assumptions from 256 onwards, they are very robust. And I suggest if council wants to sort of think about what it would want to consider in terms of potential changes, that's where I would be focusing on as part of the submission process. And the last bit I want to highlight, council, is on 358, which is the infrastructure strategy. Now, this is actually, I think, an undersold part of the LTP because it actually tells a story of where we're going with our infrastructure. And the bit I do like is, and whether we've got these dials right, I think is probably a good place to debate. We haven't had the chance to really pull that apart, but I wonder whether we should be looking at it in terms of the big picture issues. We've got those nice little dials of level of uncertainty and level of impact. When you look at the level of impact dial, they are all facing, in my opinion, the wrong way. And that's not a reflection of council, but it's a reflection of what is happening that the council has just been talking about. And my last concluding comment is regarding the when we will get some certainty. I don't think we'll ever get certainty, but I'm not hopeful that we'll have good direction in terms of finalisation of what the issues are for another 18 months. Because when you look at the legislative timeframe, it's not until middle of next year that we will actually have any certainty over what the water reforms will look like. And then it will be a process of evaluating what that really looks like. So I think we're in for an 18-month turbulent time before we can actually start to get some serious direction. And when we've got turbulence, we've got high risk. That's all I have to say, Mayor Tracy, and thank you, Council, and thank you, team, for this work.
Thanks, Philip, for sharing those insights. Right, Grant, if you don't have anything further, okay. Right, I'll just move these two things. So the recommendation, so again, we've got 1.1. Right.
It's 1.3 and 1.3.
Separately, just kind of was clear. Just in there, so 1.1, that the report from the Group Manager of Corporate and Regulatory dated the 23rd of April 2024 concerning the adoption of the draft long-term plan and supporting information be received. Sorry. Specifically wrote them out separately. Right. Okay, so we've got that the council adopts for consultation the 2024-34 long-term plan and other supporting. Sorry, Brian's just noted that the report, the recommendations got the council. It should be the Finance and Performance Committee meeting. That the Finance and Performance Committee adopts for consultation the draft 2024-34 long-term plan and other supporting material detailed in paragraph 9 of this report, and that the Chief Executive is authorised to approve any final edits required to the draft long-term plan and supporting material in order to finalise the document for printing and distribution, and the consultation document included in that as well. Somebody second it. Councillor Sutherland, all those in favour, please say aye. Against?
Aye.
Right. Thank you, councillor. Special thanks to the team, because I know it doesn't actually finish now. It's all those final little bits. It's racing off to push all those buttons and get that going live, and the preparation for our meetings to starting tomorrow. I will be heading along to the Explore Pahia Tour meeting tonight, so I will try and discuss those. For those of you that are involved in your communities, individual, I know that you'll be taking this out to them through those community committee meetings as well, and getting them on board to help talk about this and the implications of this with them. Also, and that's just around some of the funding conversations, some of the I guess looking at some of those, what were the services that we might amalgamate and how we might do things differently, and get their active involvement in this as well. Absolutely critical for this one, and getting as much feedback as we can. So thank you very much. I know it doesn't end for you right now, but maybe at the end of the week it'll be looking a whole lot better. Raj.
Thank you, Your Worship. Your Worship, councillors, truly appreciate your honesty and frank feedback. Wanted quite a few of them, and truly appreciate the confidence in voting unanimously on adopting both the CD and the alternative supporting information for the next key milestone, which is bringing it to our people, our community, and talking to them about the long-term plan. So I really appreciate the overwhelming support for us. Work starts. Tremendous effort has come to this, but I think it's not the end. And I believe the team is looking forward to the next stage, which is consultation, putting together final. And the team is also now starting to think about the annual plan as well.
the annual report. And just, I guess this afternoon I've got a finance and performance agenda meeting, just in reflection, Councillor Gilmore, just around some of those budgets and deep dives. We'll continue with those, looking at some of those. The headroom will be on there all of the time, and just doing some further so that not only ourselves are having those opportunities for those looks into those budgets and to the headroom, but actually our community's seeing it in front of them time and time again as well. So I've enjoyed some of those. I have got some notes, but please feel free to reflect some of those, and I'll put an email out just to see what councillors would like to see in there, if there's any particular areas. So that's the next piece of work this afternoon. So thank you very, very much for the mammoth effort even in getting through this reading over the weekend. So I'll close us with a karakia. Kia tau te rangimairi e, kia tau te araha, mauri ora, kia tātou katoa. Let there be peace, let there be love, life to us all. Haumi e, hui e, taiki. Yeah. Thank you. Just a quick note, we've got a couple of new team members here.